Patrick in St. Charles, Illinois. It says you disagree with me, so you go to the top of the line. What's up? What are you disagreeing about?
Good afternoon. Disagreement not so much as, well, yes, disagreement, Tom, but I'm talking about your statement that Bush is spending, evidently President Bush, hours a day in a shower or bath washing the blood.
No, I didn't say that. I said he's painted two paintings of himself, two self-portraits, one in the shower and one in the bathtub.
I've seen them, yes.
Yeah, and I was saying that I think he's doing.
My point is,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was saying I think that those were his only self-portraits. There were no self-portraits of him walking through fields or sitting in a chair or anything else. I think he's at some deep level concerned about washing the blood off his hands.
No, you've said this on a number of occasions.
Yes, I'm consistent.
Let's say I were to agree with you, which I totally disagree, but
okay.
In the gallery of those that would be washing blood from hands, you have two of your most favorite that would be way, way ahead of Bush, starting with FDR and the debacle of course, Pearl Harbor, when there's a substantial historic study that he knew that was coming well in advance. And then secondly...
so you are of the opinion that we should not have gotten into World War II?
No, I'm of the opinion he needed, and we know this from fact, he needed the American people to rally behind him so he could go to war. FDR wanted to go to war. He wanted to assist Churchill in the Eastern Theater, and he had concerns of the Japanese.
Right.
And there is a large body of work, historic body of work, that supports the notion that he knew that Pearl Harbor was going to be attacked.
Yeah, there's also a fair number of scholars who suggest that they simply lost track of the Northern Fleet, and
that'll, that may remain.
But whether or not, I would not equate FDR, even if FDR, forget about whether he knew Pearl Harbor was going to happen. He provoked Pearl Harbor by cutting off the oil supply at the Straits of Malacca. When he barricaded the Straits of Malacca so that the Japanese could no longer import oil from the Middle East, he provoked a response, whether it was in Pearl Harbor or anywhere else. I think he knew that he was going to provoke a response. So I'll give you that. But that said, I don't think that FDR fighting World War II, regardless of the provocation that was used to get us into it, I don't think that you can equate that with George Bush going into Iraq.
Well, I from a numbers standpoint, a much different situation.
I'm talking about the morality of it. There was no reason for us to go into Iraq, and we've left that country far worse than when we found it. And there was a very good reason for us to go into Europe, and we left Europe in better shape than when we damaged it pretty bad.
FDR was a piker. John F. Kennedy and Lyndon Baines Johnson are the Stalinists of the history of this country.
Are you talking about Vietnam?
Leading a nation. I happen to be one of them. 58,000 Americans killed, another 500,000 wounded, and 2 million Vietnamese died in that war.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Although I would not, I would not include Kennedy in that. Johnson made the decision to escalate that.
He kicked it off.
Kennedy put the advisors in there. Yes. But it was Johnson who turned it into a war with the phony Gulf of Tonkin resolution, and he deserves to be condemned for that.
Correct.
And it was Richard Nixon who extended it in 1968, after LBJ had negotiated peace with the Vietnamese. It was Richard Nixon who extended that, and at that point there was only about 20,000 dead Americans. It was Richard Nixon who, in 1968, who went to the Vietnamese, the South Vietnamese, and said, "Do not go along with this peace deal that LBJ has worked out with you."
LBJ quit. He quit as president. I will not accept, nor will I run. He quit as a commander-in-chief.
His party told him to.
and another million men were over there bleeding.
But Patrick, listen to this. Listen to this. In 1968, LBJ knew that his brand was so tarnished there was no way he could run for re-election because of Vietnam. And he felt horrible about Vietnam. In fact, I've got a clip of I'm going to find this clip. I don't think Shane has this. This absolutely incredible clip of LBJ. My computer's taking forever. But in just a second. But I'll find this while we're playing this. This is LBJ had negotiated peace between North and South Vietnam in August of 1968. And I don't know when you were in Vietnam, but if it was after 68.
I was in from 67 to 71.
Okay, then you were there after 68. You need to hear this tape. He had negotiated peace. It was going to be announced in September, which of course would ensure that Hubert Humphrey would win the election. Humphrey versus Nixon. Nixon's people found out about this, and his campaign manager, who was operating out of New Mexico, contacted Madame Tu in the Vietnamese embassy and said, don't go to Paris, don't go along with the peace talks. We will make you personally multimillionaires, and we'll give you a better deal. Lyndon Johnson heard the tapes of this that were brought to him by the CIA, and he called up the senior Republican in the U.S. Senate, Everett Dirksen, one of the most high-integrity people in the history in my lifetime in politics, Republican. Called up Everett Dirksen and had this conversation with him on the telephone. This was just released by the LBJ Library 3 years ago, and I don't know why it wasn't on the front page of the Wall Street Journal and in the New York Times. Listen to this.
Here's the latest information we got. The agent says that they just talked to the boss in New Mexico, and that he says that you must hold out, just hold on until after the election. We know what Chu is saying to them out there. Yeah. We're pretty well informed on both ends. Now, I'm reading their hand, Everett. I don't want to get this in the campaign. That's right. And they oughtn't to be doing this. This is treason. I know.
So I would add Richard Nixon to your list.
Richard Nixon, and more specifically, Henry Kissinger, ended that war. Not with...
No, Jerry Ford ended the war.
Who?
Jerry Ford. Jerry Ford was president when the war ended.
Well, he was president when the war ended, but Jerry Ford got
Nixon extended the war.
End the war.
Extended the war because he blew up the peace negotiations.
Ended that war, and you know that, Tom, and I know that.
I bet.
I mean, from a standpoint of negotiating and from a standpoint of meeting with the principals, Henry Kissinger is responsible for it finally being. I won't say resolved. It wasn't resolved.
Yeah.
But stopped.
Okay. Hang on. I can't put you on hold, but actually, I am gonna put you on hold, Patrick, just so you can hear this. I'm gonna play a clip here. Actually, I'll do it when I come back from the break, from the national break. Patrick, thanks for the call. Okay, I just want to play these clips again. The LBJ Library just released this stuff a couple of years ago, and so most people have never heard these before. But this is public domain stuff. It's from the Lyndon Johnson Library, the LBJ Library. And these are from 1964, May 27, 1964. 3 telephone conversations LBJ had. Now, keep in mind, the Vietnam War was just getting going. I mean, it was just getting going. I'm not sure when the Gulf of Tonkin resolution was. I'd have to go back and look. But listen to these. Each one is a little less than a minute. These 3 conversations, these with Adlai Stevenson, McGeorge Bundy, and Senator Richard Russell. Stevenson and Bundy, I think McGeorge Bundy was his Secretary of State, maybe? I'm not sure. And Adlai Stevenson, I'm not sure what he was at that point. He had been a candidate for president a number of times. In any case, here's the conversations with LBJ about Vietnam.
Me over there.
That'd be fine.
And you be thinking about it. I want to have some talks with you, and if you get free, just pick up the phone and call sometime.
All right, that's fine.
I want to, I shudder at getting too deeply involved there, and everybody thinks that's the only alternative.
Well, I've been shuddering on this thing for 3 years, and I'm afraid we're in a position now where you don't have any alternative, and it's a hell of an alternative. And it really gives me the shakes, but I don't know. He was going to give me all the up-to-date planning.
So the Gulf of Tonkin was in August. This is before the Gulf of Tonkin. Listen to this.
I think we ought to plan on that basis.
I'll tell you, the more I just stayed awake last night thinking about this thing, the more I think of it, I don't know what in the hell. It looks like me we're getting into another Korea. It just worries the hell out of me. I don't see what we can ever hope to get out of there with once we're committed. I believe the Chinese communists coming into it. I don't think that we can fight them 10,000 miles away from home and ever get anywhere in that area. I don't think it's worth fighting for, and I don't think we can get out. And it's just the biggest damn mess.
It is. It's an awful mess.
And we just got to think about I look at this sergeant of mine this morning. Got 6 little old kids over there, and he's getting out my things and bringing me in my night reading and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought about ordering those kids in there, and what in the hell am I ordering him out there for? One thing that is Vietnam worth to me? What is Laos worth to me? What is it worth to this country?
No, we have
now, we got a treaty, but still, we got a treaty, but hell, everybody else got a treaty out there, and they're not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
Now, of course, if you start running the communists, they may just chase you right into your own kitchen.
So he's got Adlai Stevenson and McGeorge Bundy saying, go for it, do it. He's very reluctant. This is 64.
Well, think about it, and I'll talk to you again. I hate to bother you, but I'm just...
I can help you. God knows I do, because it's a terrific quandary that we're in over there. We're just in the quicksands up to our very next, and I just don't know what the hell the best way to do about it.
I love you, and I'll be calling you.
I'll see you, sir.
And that was Senator Richard Russell at Lyndon Johnson. They finally found somebody who would agree with him on this, but very ambivalent. And this was 3 months before the Gulf of Tonkin. So, I mean, it's pretty amazing. You listen to these tapes.